If you're keeping track, the Trump DOJ has not convicted anyone it's gone after on its so-called enemies list, but it is still ratcheting up the charges. U.S. Attorney and Trump ally Jeanine Pirro officially not appealing the ruling that dealt them a big loss in the Fed case, but they're asking the judge to throw out the ruling and arguing it placed limits on the executive branch's ability to prosecute crimes. Pirro also left the door open to basically going back on the entire agreement they struck with Congress, that this was a baseless case, so they would drop it. Now she's saying this.
We continue to litigate the issue, and we will litigate the issue.
So it does not sound like you're committing to, if the Inspector General finds nothing, you won't move forward. It sounds like you're going to keep trying to find out more.
No, it depends on what he finds.
Depends on what he finds. So unclear if this is bluster and they continue to leave that case as it was, another setback in court that led to a failure to go after an opponent, or they try to double down, which we've also seen, especially over the past week. Because the DOJ wants to show Donald Trump that he can go after his enemies. We've shown you this list. We keep updating it. This is how we do it at The Beat. If you only look at these cases in isolation, individually, some of them might look potentially reasonable. When you take them all together, you see they're all flailing. None have won a conviction. The New York Times noting the newest effort in Georgia is to use the federal government to pursue false claims that his losing 2020 election was somehow stolen. And the revenge aspirations of the leadership, including Pam Bondi's currently temp replacement. We'll find out if the acting AG becomes the AG, but that has continued an exodus from DOJ. Some of the career prosecutors don't want to do this work. The probes have created all of this tension because you've got people literally risking losing their law license if they carry out what may be illegal indictments. And the DOJ has lost about a quarter of its lawyers, over 8,000, fired or quit in the last year. That is unusual, to say the least. And the problem here is that even when the system is working, because some lawyers say, I won't do that or that's illegal, then they face the decision to potentially quit over it or face retribution, that might stop the one bad thing from happening, legally bad. But then others come in and still do it. And they're running a lot of temp lawyers. And the Comey case has been revived. So we are at an inflection point again, even if we've heard that before. The guardrails holding some of the time, while the DOJ has a new leader that wants to go even farther. I'm going to show a headline that is odd for government. DOJ offers lawyers $25,000 signing bonus with recruitment lag. And this is to staff a particular office investigating youth transgender treatments, litigating the Trump administration's immigration agenda, other things that seem potentially controversial amid what I explained earlier in the show in the setup to you, Andrew, that sometimes the guardrails are holding. They haven't convicted a single so-called enemy, but not without cost.
I think it's really important for people to understand how unusual it is to see 8,000 people leaving the Department of Justice. It is unusual for any administration. In other words, don't look at this through a prism of Republican and Democrat. This is one that has just not happened before. And one of the things that you're alluding to is the idea that you have to give a sign-in bonus. These are jobs that I just couldn't believe I was lucky enough to get the job. And there's a waiting list, and you have the pick of the litter when you were at the Department of Justice in terms of who is applying to take that job. And people generally are taking substantial cuts in pay from the private sector to do public service. So the idea that you now not only are losing that many people, but that you have to give a financial award and reward for doing public service in this administration is a real sign of where things are. This never happened in Republican or Democratic administrations in which I've served.
And I mentioned some people in government have drawn a line. Some of them have become whistleblowers. Some have said, I won't do this. And that's your career day. And sometimes you back them off and you stay working because government officials aren't there to do only what they agree with. They're there to do the job under the Constitution's limits. Other times you're done, and 5, 10 years government service, now done, and we've seen how they treat those people. Can you speak to that context here? Because it's really discouraging to see Blanche go further than Bondi, and yet I haven't read or seen a single serious examination of the Comey case that suggests it could actually win because the system does have barriers.
The system does have barriers, but the Comey case, the most recent one, I think is not remotely plausible in terms of going to trial and winning. It is just not a true threat, not subjectively, not objectively under the Supreme Court test. Another recent case, again, brought under the Todd Blanche, I'd say not really ready for prime time, acting attorney general, is the Southern Poverty Law Center case, where he has made comments that he's had to backtrack on that are diametrically opposed to the theory of the case.
You're saying, and I'll let you finish this, you're saying Blanche can't even keep his lies or misleading claims straight. We have that, so you can explain what we're watching on the other side. Here it is, Blanche.
Sure.
There's no information that we have that suggests that the money that they were paying to these informants and these members of these organizations, they then turned around and shared what they learned with law enforcement.
It is true that over the years, they have selectively shared information with law enforcement. That's well documented, and there's no dispute there. They aren't charged with any of that conduct.
So they are charged with that. That the theory of the case is that the Southern Poverty Law Center was running a Ponzi scheme, that they were telling their donors that they were trying to thwart hate groups. Well, in fact, they were privately propping up these hate groups. And so this was just their mechanism to try and defraud donors out of money. And the Southern Poverty Law Center has been saying to the government in writing, wait a second, that's just not true. Look at the information that we gave you, the government, from us to fight these groups. Indeed, part of the indictment actually talks about an effort to thwart these groups by the Southern Poverty Law Center. So to me, Todd Blanche's statement is so directly contrary to the very theory of this case. Again, I think this is one where it is shoot first, ask questions later. There's reporting that this case, the Southern Poverty Law Center case, was sort of rushed through. It feels that way. Todd Blanche's statements and then retracting statements suggest the same. Again, like the new Comey case, I think this is a case that's not going to see the inside of a courtroom. And again, as you know, I don't usually predict these kinds of things because we usually don't know what the government has. But here it seems so implausible, like the Comey case, to have brought this, and it reeks of just trying to placate the boss so that you can become the attorney general.